And now it's Deborah Kobylt Live and the Little Italy Podcast.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on our podcast, Deborah Kobylt Live, also Little Italy Podcast. We are simulcasting our show there as well. And I have a terrific guest joining me, Vincent Paterson, famed choreographer. And he has worked with some of the biggest stars and legends in the business, period. And he is here to join us to talk about his book, Icons and Instincts. What a fabulous read, Vincent. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Deborah, for inviting me to be here. We're old friends, and it's so nice for you to read my book and get to know a little bit more about me than you knew before. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You know, I'm going to start in the early days because I believe that's who makes us who we are, right?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about you as a kid, where you grew up, and were you always into choreography? Were you dancing around the table at home? What were you like?
Well, no, I grew up in a really lower middle class, blue collar area along the Delaware River with all the oil refineries. And mostly my family was Polish, but we had a huge families of Italian people who were our godparents and who my Aunt Nellie, who's my godmother, came over every weekend and cooked spaghetti sauce. And I still use that recipe today. But no, you know, there was not much culture where I grew up, and I didn't really think about dance or anything. I mean, the only artistic thing I did was I did extracurricular activity in the theater at my junior high school and my high school. But
Yeah.
no dance. I mean, I danced, you know, like dancing on the street. And the funny thing was I was pretty much the white guy that all the black girls liked to dance with because I was funky, had a lot of soul. But no kind of formal dance training at all. No real formal training of any kind artistically at all.
Okay, so how did you go from that to ending up being, you know, like a choreographer for Michael Jackson, for Madonna, for Robin Williams in the Birdcage? We'll talk about that later too. That is one of my favorite scenes in that movie. You know, the one, wait, what does he say? What does he say?
Fosse, Fosse, Michael Kidd, Madonna, and Twyla.
One of the best scenes ever in any film, and especially in that one. It stole the film, in my opinion. But we'll get to that in a bit. So how did you go from, you know, that kid growing up near the oil refineries to who you became today? Like, what, fill in the middle for me a little bit.
Well, it's a big middle, but I'll kind of condense it as much as I can. I studied really hard because we were so poor. My dad left when I was young. We had no money, but I knew I had to get out. I knew I was an artist, but I didn't know what that meant. And I thought the only way I'm going to be able to get out of here is by going to college. So I studied hard. I did a lot of extracurricular activity, and I got a lot of scholarships to go to Dickinson College. I was going to major in law because I thought I'm poor, I can make some money, and I love theater, I can be theatrical. But I stepped into the theater there, Mathers Theater, and that was the end. I had to go back into the theater. And so that's what I did. I went for 4 years to Dickinson College, and I created the first major there, which was theater, arts, and dramatic literature. And then I moved on. I acted in the lead by Genet at a play at Society Hill Playhouse in Philadelphia. And then after that, I moved. I decided I wanted to move, and I moved with a girlfriend of mine to Arizona, to Tucson. And lo and behold, in this strange, warm place, I started to take dance class for the first time in my life, almost 24 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why I did it, but something was calling me, and I went in, and I had to break my body apart because I was just a theater mole, but I had to totally reshape my body to become a dancer. And I would come back and forth from Tucson to LA to take classes because I wanted to get much better. And then I wound up thinking, all right, if I'm going to do it, I better go to LA. So I came here, and I auditioned for 9 months, got nothing, finally got my first job when I was about to quit dance, and got my first job on a TV show with Dick Van Dyke. And then, Deborah, things just started rolling. And that's what happened. After dancing on multiple projects, from television shows to touring the world with Shirley MacLaine to videos with Michael Jackson, I then was started to be asked to choreograph. And that's what started it. Some of the first people I choreographed were Van Halen, David Lee Roth, some of their early videos. Jermaine Jackson I did something for, and then I wound up working for Michael. I had danced in Thriller, I had danced in Beat It, and then he called me up to create and choreograph and conceive the whole idea behind his short film, Smooth Criminal. And from there went on 17 years of working with Michael. Yeah, great.
Okay, so we have everything. The podcast is over. Thank you very much. Goodbye. I'm just
Okay, bye. I love you.
No, I gotta. I love people like you because you give me the synopsis. You could tell you've been in the business a long time, and now we can go and dive deep into this stuff, right?
Sure.
You gave me a lot to work with. And by the way, everybody, I just want to repeat, it's all in this fabulous book, Icons and Instincts. I love it. I even love the color. I was going to ask you, is that because it's sort of a royal color? Is that why you chose that? You know, I was looking at everything, even including your book cover. Is there a reason behind it?
I love that color. I love cranberry, that maroon color. And I thought it would be pretty on a bookshelf, you know, when you go to the bookstore, what would stand out. And I thought a couple photographs in that color would kind of catch people's eye. And it seems that it's doing that. So
yes, it really is. And may I say, in the back of the book, look at some of the testimonials, please. Madonna, Paula Abdul, Steven Spielberg. The Way You Make Me Feel surely is the best video ever made. I mean, come on. Mike Nichols, who has, you know, since passed, but gosh, this is pretty incredible stuff. So you came to LA, you became a dancer. Talk to me about working with MJ, because wow. I mean, how many of us were dancing in the mirror to those videos?
Yeah.
You know?
Ain't that the truth? Well, you know, I had to audition for the first thing I did with him, which was Beat It. And it was so funny, a funny story, which I'll share. I came into the audition and there were about 100 guys there. And most of them had on like neon colored stretch tank tops and stretch dance pants and leg warmers, you know. Well, having been an actor, I thought I knew it was about gangs. I didn't know what about gangs, but I thought, I'm going to come as a character. So I came kind of dressed as the character in Beat It. And I had a little earring. I had my growth of a beard, and I greased my hair a little bit and wore jeans and a black jacket. And I saw Michael Jackson up there saying to the director and the choreographer, who's that guy? Who's that guy? You know, well, of course, I was the only one that looked like a character and I could dance my butt off. So, you know, I got that gig and I was an assistant on that. And when you do that, you get to work with the stars. So I worked with Michael a lot, just helping him out, being sure that he was comfortable, being sure that he knew all the movement precisely. And then after that, we went to Thriller, and I was assistant on that, and a dancing zombie, of course. And so again, I get to spend some time with Michael Jackson, and we got along great. And I'm just, you know me, I'm a friendly guy, and I just wanted him to, you know, spend more time with the dancers and not hide in his trailer from being so shy. And I'll tell you, Deborah, it was amazing working with this man. He was such a sweet man. He was such a kind man. At the same time, we would work our butts off, focused, and then 5 minutes later be laughing outrageously, just having such a fun time and laughing. But he gave me the freedom to do whatever I wanted to do. He just said, I trust you, you do it, I'll come in, I'll learn it, maybe change a little phrasing here and there, but I want you to conceive, I want you to choreograph. And that's what he did. So he was a joy.
Wow.
He was truly a joy. And he cared about dancers. He was sure that dancers were always put under a SAG contract, which is very unusual for music videos. When we were doing Smooth Criminal, he had a sprung dance floor built in the room so that the dancers wouldn't injure themselves. I mean, he was a really good guy. He was a great person and such an inspiration. And I'll say one more thing. I don't know how to explain this, but when you danced next to him, it was so, I have chills right now talking about this. He was so quiet. He was like a little shy mouse when the music wasn't going on, you know, and he would talk like this, and this was his real voice. I mean, he was really shy. That music would turn on and he would become a musical monster. I mean, it was like he was possessed by something. And when, I'm not kidding you here, when you would dance next to him, it was like you could feel sparks shooting off his body, and it just electrified you and made you a better dancer just by being next to him. It was
Oh,
an
honey,
incredible experience. Incredible.
I believe that the sparks would come through the record albums. Are you kidding me?
Oh, yeah.
But in terms of his personality, isn't that the way with performers? I mean, they are definitely one way personally, and then as soon as the lights go on, I mean, honestly, even me, like 5 minutes before that we were recording, I was sort of not in my best state because I was having technical issues and whatever. Boom, the lights go on, and you just sort of you get to work, you get the business done, right?
Yeah.
And then the lights go off, and Michael Jackson is quietly going back to his trailer, like the little mouse you described him. And that's really interesting. But don't you find no, all right, let's go to Madonna, because she was sort of always on, wasn't she? I often wonder, who was she? Was she like that even when she was alone? I wonder, because she just seemed to always be on. Tell me about her and what work you did with her too.
Well, I think she was always on. I think she is. I think she lives her life in a whole different way than Michael lived his life.
Oh,
you know?
Oh yeah.
But he started as a baby. So, that the father protected them all and kept them kind of enclosed and away from the public. They didn't have a lot of friends outside of the family. And, Madonna was different. She grew up she lived her life. She didn't become successful till her late teens, early 20s. So, that's a different kind of way of seeing life and perceiving life and living life. But, it is true. There was a huge difference between Michael not performing and performing, or rehearsing even with the music and not rehearsing with the music. Madonna, not that much difference. I mean, all that energy that she presented on stage, all that swaggering, all that, intense in your face, that was Madonna all the time, 24/7, Yes, she relaxed, of course, and she was a fun party person, absolutely. But who you saw with Madonna was pretty much who she was, who she is. She's always been out there. She's always been ballsy and not afraid to say anything and do anything, and a little bit different than Michael. A little bit different than Michael. And now, I'll tell you one more thing with Michael, when he said, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but when he said, I trust you, do whatever you want, it was a little bit different with Madonna. Madonna would say, well, create something and then show it to me and let me see if I like it or not. Well, she loved everything I did, but it was always show it to me first, so that was the difference.
Right. That would probably be me. Like, that's somebody who needs to control everything, right? Like, that would be me. I'd be like, no, show it to me first. Okay, I could do this. Yeah, I love that. But the gift is that you're able to sort of accommodate, those types of needs, whatever it is that the performer is asking for, and whatever it is, according to their personalities. That's kind of tough. How did you do that? How did you manage to sort of, it's a tough business, number one, in the first place, right? But to be able to go back and forth like that and gain their trust, how did you do that?
Well, two things. I think first, it's physically, what I would try to do is I would try to be a mimic. And before I would ever go into a studio with any of these celebrities, whether it was Madonna, Björk, Michael Jackson, Glenn Close, I mean, it didn't matter, I would kind of watch them and see how they moved. With Glenn, even watch her films and how does she move. With Michael, everything was angular, and everything was much more angular, all the movement. Madonna, everything was much more flowing and soft, and she can hit, but still it came from a different, much more feminine perspective of physicality. Björk, I laughed at because I always called her my Icelandic Teletubby, because she moved like a little kid moves, it was adorable. So I would kind of get inside of that physicality and then create the movement for them so they could kind of see themselves on my body. But I think the other thing that worked really well was that I'm a really honest guy, me, and I would tell them, look, you're paying me a lot of money. You obviously respect me or you wouldn't have me here. So I'm going to be your mirror, and I'm not always going to say things you like, but I'm going to tell you what I see from out here. Now, ultimately, you're the one who's going to be in front of the world. So you have to make your own decisions, but you have enough people who are kissing your butt. You don't need to hear yes, yes, yes from me if I'm thinking no, no, no. So I think that's one thing they always welcomed was my honesty.
Yeah, and there's a way to do that. Let's talk about one of the most famous moves. I asked you about that. What do you call it? The tilt, like on Michael
Oh, the
Jackson. Looks like he
lean.
was like. Now I know you're responsible for another move, but I want to get to that. I don't know if we have a picture of that, Tony, my engineer, if we could find it. Where Michael Jackson is like, what is he at? Like a 45-degree angle, and I'm thinking, how
Yeah.
the heck? Please tell me, or tell our audience how he did that, because I know there's a little bit of magic behind there, right?
Well, I'm not going to tell it all because it's a spoiler. They can read it in the book, yeah, because I really go into it there, but I'm going to tell a little bit about it. I will say that.
Wait, tease it, because once we tease it, then they're going to be like, oh my God, I have to pick up this book.
There you go. Thank you for that picture. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you one thing. It was not done with their feet sliding into a mechanism on the floor, which is, I have seen science papers. I have seen, it's incredible. People doing a whole science PhDs on Michael Jackson's lean and how it was possible to do it. Well, forget it. It wasn't done with cleats in the floor. It was done with an old theatrical device, because I'm a theater guy and I like to come up with some crazy things for Michael. And the two things that I came up with in Smooth Criminal were that lean, was the lean for him and the other guys.
Wow.
And you can read about that and find that out in the book. And then the other thing was at the very beginning of Smooth Criminal, when he walks into the room and he flips a coin and it goes slow motion across the room and lands in the jukebox, bam, and the music comes on. So those were the two really fun things I wanted to create in that video for him, besides the dancing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And then there is one that so many people, I remember the first time I saw it. Let's talk about the crotch grab, right?
Oh.
I remember thinking, whoa, I don't know if I like that or not. And then when I saw Madonna doing it, I'm like, do I like that? And now everybody's doing it. So you invented the public crotch grab, right? So let's talk about, like, how did that even happen? How do you even think, like, I'm glad I'm making you laugh, but how do you think that thing?
Well, I'll tell you the truth. Yeah. I didn't mean to do it. It was, and I'm probably going to hell for it. But anyway, I was rehearsing with Michael and I was standing there and I did a movement that kind of went down my body like this. And Michael went, what'd you do? What'd you do? And I said, what? He goes, well, you touched yourself down there. And I said, well, not really. And he goes, yeah, you did. What's that movement? I said, well, Michael, you kind of did that in the bad video. And he goes, well, if I did, I didn't know I was doing it. So he goes,
right.
And then he goes, you're nasty, Vince. Ooh, you're nasty. And I said, well, Michael, that's not nasty. That's fun. And he goes, okay, then let's be nasty. So I showed him the crotch grab and we started putting it into stuff and it started taking over. Everybody started doing it. And then when I did the video Express Yourself for Madonna, we were at the end of a piece. I had choreographed for her at the top of this big, long staircase. And there was one beat at the end. And she said to me, she yelled down, Vince, we're in rehearsal. What do I do with my other hand? I said, oh, Madonna, grab your balls because you got bigger balls than any man in the room. She goes, perfect.
Wow. What?
And that's how that began.
What a great story. Boy, can I hear her say that to you. That is just incredible, unbelievable. Wow, Vince, just amazing. Talk to me about choreography. Do you look at the costumes first? Do you hear the music first? Do you meet with the artist first? Like, what's your job? Like, what do you do? How do you do this? Because I know I couldn't do it. Go ahead.
Well, usually you meet with the artist first, kind of talk out what's going on, or the director. If I'm not directing, then I meet with the director and hear what the concepts are, what the director wants to do, or what the artist wants to do, depending if it's a film or if it's a music video or a concert. It's a very different thing. But Michael Jackson told me this very early on, and it's a practice that I follow all the time. And that is, he said, don't try to impose an idea on the music. Let the music tell you what it wants to be. Listen to it many, many times, and it will tell you what it wants to be. So, Deborah, that's what I do. You know, I listen to music, and then I see kind of shapes or forms, and then I get into a studio and I start to make movement happen on those forms or on those beats, and it all falls into place. I'll tell you one crazy story. When I did the Blonde Ambition tour, because that was the big tour for Madonna, her big, huge first tour, where we changed the face of pop tours. Before that, it was just a singer getting up there and singing with the band. And we brought in dancers and sets and costume changes and made it a piece of theater. And now everybody performs their shows that way. But she had hired somebody else and made a big mistake. And that person had been in there for 4 weeks and hadn't created one piece. I got a call from Madonna at home, frantic. Vincent, I messed up. I chose the wrong person. I'm letting them go and I need you to be in here. Please, please, please. So after some tough negotiations, of course, with Madonna, got down there and started to work. Well, I had 18 pieces, Deborah, I had to do in 21 days from scratch. 18 pieces. So it's insane. I would be home at night. I'd put the speakers on my head, on my tape deck. I would listen to the song 50, 60, 70 times just in meditation. I would fall asleep. When I woke up, the entire piece was in front of my eyes. I would go to the studio down the street. My assistants would be there. I would say, learn this fast. And I'd spit out all the movement. They'd learn it. Dancers and singers would come in. They'd learn it. Madonna come in. She'd learn it. We'd finish the piece in one day. Come back the next day, review that, start dance number 2. It was crazy. Don't ask me how I got plugged in. I have no idea, but it went back to Michael saying, let the music tell you what it wants to be. And that's what happened.
Wow. I do not want to forget that later on in our interview, I want to ask you about sort of the notoriety that choreographers get, but I don't really want to talk about that now because I actually want to go back to something else, because you said you got that call from Madonna. What I love in your book is when you also describe when you were living in Hollywood, and I forgot the street, you mentioned the street, and you got a call from Michael. I mean, and you almost hung up on the guy. Like, what was that? Those are the moments that happened to me recently. You know who called me? Carlo Ponti. And right. And I'm thinking, like, not long ago, and I looked at the phone, I'm thinking, what? Why is Sophia Loren's son calling me? And we had a wonderful conversation. I interviewed him 2 days later because, we had seen some work that I had done and I had reached out to him. And sometimes when you get calls like that, you just want to hang up the phone thinking, man, and I know that's what happened to you. So can you describe for us that moment?
Well, the first one was from Michael, and that was crazy. I was on Franklin, actually, my apartment on Franklin Avenue. And that's it. Up in Hollywood, and I answered the phone, and this voice said, "Hi, is Vince there?" I said, "Who's this?" "It's Michael." Yeah. I said, "Michael who?" "Michael Jackson." I said, "This is not Michael Jackson. Who is this?" "It is Vince. It's Michael Jackson." I was like, "This is not Michael Jackson. You better tell me who the heck this is, or I'm hanging up right now." "No, really, don't hang up. It's Michael Jackson." I was like, "Oh my God, sorry, Michael. I didn't know it was you." But as you say, Deb, you don't expect these calls to happen. Same thing happened with Madonna. She called me up. "Hi, Vince, it's Madonna." I said, "This is not Madonna. Who's calling?" "No, Vince, it's Madonna." I was like, "Oh, Madonna. Okay, what do you want?" And then the third time that happened was I was sitting at this exact room at this exact desk, and the phone rang, and I picked it up. "Hi, is this Vincent?" "Yeah, this is Glenn Close." I was like, "Glenn Close? Are you kidding me?" She said, No, this is Glenn." I was like, "Oh my God, you are my consummate actor. I thank you so much for this call." But it's bizarre when you're sitting at home and you get these calls out of the blue.
It is. Talk to people about what you did with Glenn Close.
Oh, that was so sweet. She called me. She was doing a television version of South Pacific. And she said, "I am not a dancer, Vincent. I have 2 left feet. But I know your work, and I've seen so many things that you've done, and I know that you can work with somebody like me and make me feel very comfortable." And I did. We had a great time. We shot it in Australia along the Great Barrier Reef, and she was so adorable, Deborah. Oh my God, she was just the sweetest person. And she was having some problems with the director and didn't feel he was that good of a character director. He was good with image, but not text. So she would ask me, she knew I was a director, and she said, "Would you do some work with me here in my condominium?" And I said, "Sure." So I went over some scenes with her, and that was really fun. And then this is how sweet she is. We did a showing in New York, a big screening they had, and I was flown into New York to do it. And Glenn called me and said, listen, you can crash at my house if you want. And I was like, okay. So I went after the show, went to her place. She has a lovely apartment. And she said, you're staying in my room, the major bedroom, the master bedroom, and I'm staying in the guest room. I said, oh my God. I mean, this is how sweet this woman is. She's just, incredible, just incredible.
Talk about gratitude. Wow, that's like gratitude on steroids. That's incredible. Wow.
And humility, you know, and humility.
Good heavens, unbelievable. Now I want to circle back to Robin because, okay, a little thing about me. I love that movie, Birdcage, so much that if I don't watch it in between, I always watch it on my birthday because I can't stop laughing. There's not a single scene in that movie that I don't laugh. And I think I could recite all the words from every single one of those characters, like whether it was him or Nathan Lane or Diane Weiss, like you just name them. I think I could really truly name, like recite the whole film. But when he's doing that thing, right? What was he doing again? Like Fosse.
The eclectic celebration of the dance. Yes.
Oh my God. Because Robin, we all know that, he would be great for the improv, so it's almost like, how do you teach a guy like that any moves at all? Did you just sort of give it to him and then he improvised, or what? How did that go down?
Well, I had worked with Robin several times before. I had done Comic Relief, which used to be a big charity show that was on television annually. And I would do the opening numbers for Whoopi Goldberg, Robin, and Billy Crystal. And then I directed a show, a documentary all about Dr. Seuss. And I created all these Seussian characters. And I asked Robin to come in and play the Seussian dad who read Cat in a Hat to his daughter. So he did that and brought in his daughter, Zelda, as well as Christopher Columbus's daughter. They both came in and did it for me. So when Birdcage happened, and Mike Nichols, I had my agent contact Mike Nichols because I just felt this is part of the instinct part of the title of my book. When I heard Mike Nichols was doing this, I said, I've got to do this movie. This is my movie. I have to do this movie. I didn't know Mike. He didn't know me, but my agent talked to him. He flew me to New York. I sat with him at a restaurant and he said, so tell me, my boy, why do you think you're the one to do this movie? He said, I've already asked Tommy Tune. I said, well, I love Tommy Tune. I think Tommy Tune's great. I said, but you're talking about drag queens. You're talking about, you want men to be drag queens in a bar in Miami, and that's contemporary and hot. And I said, I have so much experience with this. Look what I've done with Madonna. Look what I've done with Diana Ross. Look what I've done with Whitney Houston. So many women, making them look gorgeous. And anyway, he took me on and he said, okay, I want you to be with me from day one. So I was there from the first table read with everybody, Deborah. Oh my God, it was incredible. So
what a table.
What happened with that was that piece with Robin, the eclectic celebration of the dance. They were shooting it. They shot the first part of it. And then he was supposed to, all that Elaine May had written was the actor dancer who was there said, what do I do? Just stand here like an object? And all that was written was, no, you do the eclectic celebration of the dance. All right, I'll see you all later. So Robin came running back to me on a break and said, Vincent, I am so tired of playing the straight gay man. I've got to do something funny. I need to do something funny. Can you come up with something? And I said, well, why don't I come up with the eclectic celebration of the dance? Come back here on the next break and I'll teach you this and you can go back and do it. So I made that up really quickly. He came running back behind the set. Behind the set, I showed him everything. He went back. They said, okay, let's roll cameras. So they did it. And Robin did this, what looked like an improvisation. Everybody laughed out loud, so they couldn't keep the recording, of course. And Mike Nichols very kindly said, Robin, that was hysterical, but let's do it the way that Elaine wrote it. And Robin got down on his hands and knees and crawled across the floor to Mike and said, Mike, Vince did that for me. Please, can't we shoot it, please? And Mike Nichols said, all right, look, let's do it the way Elaine wrote it. And then we'll do a couple takes like this. But listen, boys, I just wanted you to know it might not wind up in the film. So we were very grateful when it wound up in the film, and it winds up being one of those moments in the film that everybody quotes. Almost always when you say the Birdcage, they go, oh, Fosse, 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 Michael Kidd, Michael Kidd. I mean, that's the first thing people think of. It's crazy.
Right? Between that and Hank Azaria falling out of his shoes. And I remember Gene Hackman just looking at, right? And Gene Hackman looking and going, I think I'm going insane. I mean, there's so many lines in that film. But you really produced one of the most iconic moments ever in that movie. Gosh, I mean, when I even think of what you've done, working with Whitney, working with Diana Ross, which I believe was not maybe your finest moment in terms of relationship. Could you describe some folks that were challenging with you? Would you?
Yeah, I also wrote the book just so that, young artists coming into the business wouldn't think that, oh my gosh, everything that you had, Vincent, was perfect. You never had a problem. Nothing ever went wrong, blah, blah, blah. They only see the positive, wonderful results. And that's great. But there were some people that I had difficult times with. Some changed over time and were amended and grew into beautiful relationships. One of those was Shirley MacLaine. I danced with her as a dancer, and things didn't go well. She had a crazy little belt that had a Velcro attachment. And when we were on tour and she would gain weight, the belt didn't stretch. And so she'd pooch her belly out and it'd fall off. And I would be responsible as if I was the one who didn't know how to put two pieces of Velcro together. So that turned ugly. Dear. Yeah. But anyway, that turned ultimately, we had a beautiful relationship. Several years later, I directed a huge project for AIDS Project LA, and I asked Shirley if she would MC it, and she did, and she was great. But with Diana, I was in love with Diana as a teenager. I mean, my God, that look that she had with the Supremes, with that little wing cut and cut off one side, and oh my God, she was so sexy to me. I got to see her. My mom saved up all this pennies and took me to see her at the Latin Casino for my graduation. And I just couldn't believe it. I was so in love. And then she did a video called Pieces of Ice. And she was like a woman stranded on this island of ice. And I played a white wolf man who then we touched each other and I became the prince, so to speak, and her love interest. And we danced around together and it was a great time. But I didn't have the best time with her. She wanted me to create a new tour for her. Unfortunately, she told me to go back to LA, put everything together. She was going off to Switzerland to have some dental work done. She'll come back and learn it when I have it all finished. Well, her management team, everybody was so happy with what I did. I sent her a video. She hated it. She said, where are my hits? Screaming, where are my hits? Where are my hits? Where are my hits? Well, it turned out that every concert, every tour she'd ever done, she'd done the same numbers every single time. Right. So I put in some new things that were still #1 songs, but not what she was accustomed to doing. So we didn't hit it off too much. She had me fire the dancers, and then she wound up firing me. And it's a shame because her management and her musical director, everybody said, oh my God, this is the tour Diana really needs. This is what should happen for her. But at the moment, she wasn't ready to make the change that she wanted. Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting because, Michael Jackson did, and we all know that he looked up to her. Yeah. Right, which is really quite interesting. I want to go back to a couple things. That moment where Madonna was Marie Antoinette. You worked with her on that, everybody, and also on Evita. I mean, that's a big one, and that got recognized by the Academy Awards as well. Yeah. I want to talk about working on those two performances, and then let's segue a little bit into choreography and choreographers. And do we really think that they get the recognition that they deserve?
Great. Well, let me see. So Marie Antoinette, I had directed and choreographed the Blonde Ambition tour. I'd also, on my first day that I came in to work on that tour that I explained to you, Madonna begging me to come down there, the two Voguers in her show had created Vogue movement, but they hadn't put it all together. So and she was getting ready to shoot Vogue with David Fincher the next day. So I just took all their movement and I made it into a dance that you could do.
Yeah.
So I worked on that.
Wow.
I worked on that version of it of Vogue, but I really give the two boys credit, not me, because they made the steps up, you know.
Right.
So that was the first thing. Then the second time I did Vogue for her was in the tour. I closed the tour with Vogue, and we did that a little bit differently as well. So after the tour was over, she came back home and she was asked by MTV to do an appearance, and she called me up and she said, "Hey, would you choreograph this for me? Give me an idea and choreograph it." And she said, "I was thinking that maybe her two backup singers and her, Nikki and Donna, and her could wear suits and the men could wear skirts." And I said, we've done it before. Let's try something new. Well, what? I said, I don't know. Let me go to a studio. I'll play. I'll call you up. You can come down. But this is what I mean. Well, what are you going to do? Well, I don't know yet, Madonna. So I go down. I play. I had these crazy fans. And I thought, maybe I could do something with fans. Well, when I started to work with fans and posing and voguing, I thought, this is interesting. It reminds me kind of Marie Antoinette's court, you know, and these guys who would stand around in these poses, and Marie Antoinette with the hair and the fans. And so I called her up. I said, I have a great idea. How about you as Marie Antoinette? And remember, at that point, every time we saw Madonna, she had a new look. It was crazy. Right. She was blonde hair. She was dark hair. She had long hair. She had short hair. It was like every time we saw her, it was something new. So she said, what is it? And I said, you as Marie Antoinette and the guys as members of your court. She was kidding, but she said, well, that sounds like shit. And I said, well, why don't you come on down and look and see what you think? And if you like it, we'll do it. And if you don't, you can get somebody else. So she came down, fell in love with the idea. And of course, I mean, it was absolutely insane. That look, I mean, so many people have copied it now from what she did. So that was such a fun thing.
I remember seeing it for the first time thinking, I'm not sure I like this. I sort of prefer her in her cone bra. And, right? Because that's how we're used to seeing her, like half naked or with a cone bra. And then the more I watched it, I thought, this is actually quite brilliant. And it was, and it is. And that's why it's also stood the test of time. Evita. Let's talk. We don't have all that much time, so talk a little bit about that, because that was that got the Oscar nods for Madonna.
Yeah,
and so much choreography went into that, but yet the choreographers did not. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, well, I did wind up getting main title credit on it, but it was a very difficult project with Alan Parker. For some reason, right. even though he had directed Fame and he knew what it was like to do dance, he said from the beginning, I don't want you to do many rehearsals. I want this to look improvisational. And I said, but Alan, it doesn't work that way. I said, it only looks improvisational if you've rehearsed it. So that you rehearse it so much that it doesn't look like anything's going on. So anyway, that was a little bit of a difficulty. And I found out that the reason was that on an Alan Parker film, he was used to being the star. On Evita, Madonna was the star. And he was a little jealous that Madonna and I had had a relationship, a working relationship, a professional relationship. And when I basically told him, listen, Alan, I'm here for you, man. You're the one who asked me to do the project. If you don't want me here, you can get somebody else. He apologized and everything got much better, you know. But anyway, it was just an ego thing, but no big deal. But Madonna was sensational. I hooked her up with some tango dancers, some tango teachers when she was in New York. She learned all this traditional Argentine tango. She worked and worked and worked. And it showed. I mean, she was flawless in that movie. And the other thing is, here we are, 3/4 of the way shooting it. I get a call from her. Vincent, I'm pregnant. You're pregnant? What do you mean you're pregnant? I'm pregnant and it's starting to show. And she goes, and I've got to do that final waltz with Che in that thin little white silk dress. What am I going to do? And I said, well, let's get together and rehearse. So I flew to New York and I worked with her and all, and I was going to take a lot of things out. And she said, no, let me try everything. I want to keep it as it is because I love the movement. If I start to do it and if things don't feel good, then we can adjust it when we're on the set. And I said, okay. But she was a trooper, Deborah. Oh my God, you know?
Yeah, it was one of those times that she let herself go. That I didn't, after watching the film for a while, I didn't think I was looking at Madonna anymore. I was, in fact, I was looking at the actual character, which was, she did a phenomenal job. It was one of those times where you could see all that work that was put into it. and
Yeah.
she got the recognition for it, which very often choreographers do not. What
Yeah.
would you like to say about that, about choreographers and
Well, yeah,
getting the recognition that you all deserve?
it's been very difficult. We're not part of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. I am the only choreographer who's a member of the Academy, and I'm working very, very hard to open that up to get more choreographers in there. So eventually we can get an award for our choreography. That has never happened before, except under very special circumstances, 3 times. But special circumstances, not like a regular annual award. But there's a group of people, me included, who have started a guild now, because that's what has to happen here. You need to get into a union, and we never had a choreographers union. So it's called the CG, the Choreographers Guild, and we have some very impressive people on it. I will humbly say myself, but wonderful people like Derek Huff, and Kenny Ortega, Mandy Moore, who did La La Land, and so many amazing people have joined now and are part of this. And we need to now bond together so that we can get things that we don't have. We are never guaranteed credit like every other person on a set is. We don't have pension, health, and welfare. We don't own any of our work. We have to sign everything we do under a contract called work for hire, which means I don't have children. My creations are my babies. I don't own one of my babies. And because of that, people steal my work. People use it all over the world, put their name on it as credit. And I can't do anything about it because I've signed my life away to be able to work. So hopefully, Deborah, it's about education. It's about people understanding that choreographers do much more than just make a couple steps up. I'll give you a quick example. In Express Yourself, the video, if anybody ever sees that again with Madonna, I taught her how to sit in a chair and look fabulous with a long cigarette holder. I taught her how to crawl across the floor like a cat and pour milk all down her chin. It's things you don't think about. Exactly, girl. Look at how sexy you look there.
That's right, honey. With my Bic pen.
So it's about education, and thank you so much for bringing that up, because choreographers need to get the same kind of recognition, the same pension, health, and welfare benefits as everybody that we work elbow to elbow with.
Yeah, you do, and it's your work, and that's very important. And people who often are not artists don't realize that. I was recently in a situation where I created something, and somebody said, "I want that." I'm like, I don't think so, because I've gotten very smart over the years, and whatever I do, I often trademark it. So, right, because you have to, because someone will come along and want to take it away, and it's like, nope. So you do have to think smart. I'm glad you're doing this, because you do deserve not just the recognition, but the benefits that go along with the work, right? So that's incredible. And then future proceeds, right? Money for what you've done as well. This is critical. Okay, we don't have that much more time, but I just want to say a few things. The photos in here are pretty fabulous. I mean, especially when I opened up to one of my favorites, Paul McCartney. Now this is where I'm going to start to tease this book a little bit, people, because you've got to get it. Vincent talked about this much that's in the film, right? But there's so much more in this book. So many of probably your favorite artists that he's worked with. Anything else you want to say about anything in the book that I didn't bring up, and that you want people to know about you, about the book, about your wonderful husband, Renee, anything?
Well, I'll tell you, I wrote the book for a couple of reasons. First of all, because of the situation I just spoke about, credit. So many people had no idea that I did all of these things. But second of all, I wrote it for young artists or artists who are coming into the business. And I explain the down times as well as the up times, because I think that oftentimes artists, they sometimes hit a brick wall and they get so frustrated, to the point of maybe giving up the business, or, as happened to me, I contemplated suicide. It can get that dark for us sometimes. And I just wanted people to know that, keep positive, keep believing in yourself, keep doing your homework, be prepared, especially be prepared. You never know when the next opportunity is going to present itself in this crazy business. So, you know what, if you're a dancer, go take an acting class, go take a voice class. If you're an actor, take a dance class. You never know. Somebody could call you up and say, hey, I got $1 million job for you. Do you know how to move? So yeah, you can say, yeah, I do know how to move a little bit. Be prepared. And those are some, and I wanted people who know so many of these iconic pieces. I wanted them to know how they were created and the fun that went through creating them, and what these celebrities are like behind the scenes and how hard they work. It doesn't just fall into place for them. Like all of us, we work our butts off. You do, I do, and they certainly do, So that's what I want to share in my book.
None of it is ever easy. If it looks easy, just like you said, that means even more work went into it, right? It's
Exactly.
like that. It's like that triple axle. It's like, no, that took a lot of work, many years behind it. And anything else, right? Any sports figure, writer, performer, and that's what I got out of the book too: the work, but also the love for the work. So thank you for sharing this with us. Please, people, pick it up. Icons and Instincts. Are you going to be appearing anywhere? I know that we'd love to maybe do a little something at one of the local bookstores here in Los Angeles. I know you did one at Book Soup.
I did
so
one
you
at
got
Book
any?
Soup. I'm going to do one on the 25th at La Cañada, Flint Ridge, at the bookstore there. They have an artist day, author day, and so they have invited several artists, and Amy and I will be there for about 2 hours in the afternoon on November 25th. That is Thanksgiving weekend. And then I'm keeping my fingers crossed, Deborah, that you and I get to do something together, because we have a history, and it's so easy and comfortable for us to be together. I really hope that would happen. And I just want to say that you can buy the book at Amazon.com or Book Soup or many other places, but it's available out there.
Yeah, wonderful book, people. Pick it up. It's just terrific. Like I said, I was thumbing through it twice. I loved it. And Vincent, you were a delight. We'd love to have you back, but it would be fun to do something live. So let's try and make something happen. And people, Icons and Instincts, pick it up. Great read. And you could see this interview again on all video and audio platforms of podcasts, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Amazon Live, Apple, iHeart, you just name it, plug in my name, Deborah Kobylt, live, and Vincent Paterson, and you'll find our interview, audio and video. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate it. Much love, and take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Deborah.